Okay, everyone, we're going live. We're going live. Your pal Sully had some tech issues, so we're going live.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, and Sully Baseball Podcast Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of us is right here on the YouTube channel. And check us out. If you're going to be leaving a comment, make sure to put that hashtag Everyday Sully. It helps us find you. It helps us locate your, what you wrote to us. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMB for $20 off your first purchase. Hey, I see some people are listening to us in the live feed. Do me a favor. Let me know if you can hear me. I recorded an episode earlier today, and I listened to it, and there was no sound. And I had to bust out my old headset to record it. So if you can hear me, post a comment saying, "We hear you, Sully." In fact, prove that you can hear me and type the words Butch Hobson. There you go, Butch Hobson. Hopefully you can hear me, and let's go through the trivia question, which was, and we got a lot of people got this one wrong. Who was the first eventual Hall of Famer to hit a walk-off postseason home run? Now, I think a bunch of you thought I meant like a series clinching home run because almost everybody wrote Bill Mazeroski. I got about 5 people guessing Bill Mazeroski. The fact of the matter is that's incorrect. He was an eventual Hall of Famer, and he did hit a walk-off home run in the World Series in the postseason, but there was an eventual Hall of Famer who did it before him, and it was G.R.T. Hughes got it right. Eddie Matthews in the 1957 World Series. So there you go. And let's go through just quickly. We do Who Owns Baseball during the regular season. Well, now we're doing Who Owns October because it is time to break through. We've had one day of postseason baseball, and let's see who the heroes were. It'll give us a nice little overview. We'll break down the games a little bit, and you're going to be hearing this, that, and the other thing. That I trust you. But there we go. We got a couple of people there. Okay. And Booney from Locked On A's is is a little bit ahead of the game of something I was going to talk about in just a bit. But so who owned October for the first game for September 30th, 2025? There were some ace pitchers who certainly did. Garret Crochet threw a masterpiece. He struck out 11 Yankees in 7 2/3 innings to win the opener. Another ace who came up big, Blake Snell. Don't tell Kevin Cash this, but he threw 7 innings. He struck out 9 batters as the Dodgers took the opener. And another ace who came up big, arguably the biggest, was Tarik Skubal, who threw 7 2/3 innings. 2 pitchers pitched 7 2/3 innings. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And he struck out 14 Cleveland batters, and Tigers took the opener 2-1. The other pitcher who owned October was Daniel Palencia, who retired all 5 Padres he faced out of the bullpen, struck out 2, and earned the 3-1 decision for the Cubs. The full who owned October for batters would be Riley Green, who doubled, walked, scored in Detroit's victory over Cleveland. Teoscar Hernandez went 3 for 5 with a pair of home runs, all due respect to Shohei Ohtani. Seiya Suzuki got the home run that put the Cubs on the board and eventually went on to win. And Nick Sogard, who I'm sure a lot of people wondering what the hell he was even doing in the Red Sox lineup, got a hustle double, and he helped push the Red Sox to a 3-1 victory over the Yanks. And the half-woos, we got to give honors to those who played well in a losing situation. Scarp Barlow pitched an inning 2/3 of shutout ball for the Reds. Matt McClain doubled and singled for the Reds. Jackson Merrill hit a double and scored the Padres' only run against the Cubs. Nick Pivetta struck out 9 Cubs, but he let up a pair of home runs, which were the difference in the Padres' loss to Chicago. Jose Ramirez reached base 2 times, so getting a third on in the 9th inning, but he got caught trying to score, and the Cleveland Guardians came up a run short. Gavin Williams was great. He struck out 8 in 6 innings, allowing 2 unearned runs, but took the hard luck 2-1 decision for Cleveland. And Anthony Volpe homered and singled, but the Yankees came up short against Boston 3-2. Now, our buddy Booney from Locked On A's is in the chat right now, and he wrote, "You were right. The Dodgers bullpen is awful." And I'm telling you something. The Cincinnati Reds, by the way, scored their first postseason runs since 2013. It's been a while since they've scored any runs. But the Reds got, just a casual glance, the Reds were doubled up by the Los Angeles Dodgers 10-5. Ohtani homered right at the beginning, and the Dodgers jumped out to an 8-0 lead. And Blake Snell came into the 7th inning, let up a pair of runs, but he finished the 7th inning. Great run. Okay. I've said this before, and I've said this again. The defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers are vulnerable. Clearly they're vulnerable because they're not the first seed or even the second seed in the National League, but that's not even the point. The point is you can beat the Dodgers. What you have to do is get to their bullpen. Their bullpen isn't subpar. Their bullpen stinks. And I thought it was a horrific decision to not put Clayton Kershaw on the roster here, because I thought he should be used in key relief situations. Now, as it turned out, they jumped up to a 8-0 and eventually 10-2 lead. So that's fine. But Vesia, Enriquez, Dreyer, now Trinan didn't let up a run, but they made it a game. The Dodgers were up 10-2, and at one point in the 8th inning, the tying run was on the on-deck circle. This Dodger bullpen, they can laugh about it now. They'll probably win tomorrow, and everyone will forget the Reds were even in the playoffs. But do you know what? If the Reds kept the Dodgers from blowing the doors off the dump, we would have had a ball game. And if, Hunter Green had a very bad game. He just had a bad game. He let up 3 home runs. He didn't get to the 4th. He had a bad game. Stay with the Dodgers, because if you get into their bullpen, you can score. Now, it'll probably, as I said before, the Reds probably won't be the team to take them down. But they're going to be playing Philadelphia next. Philadelphia fixed their bullpen problems. And if I were Philadelphia, I would be watching this first game against Cincinnati and be salivating, absolutely salivating, saying, "Oh, please, please, just hang tight. All right, Nola. All right, Sanchez. All right, whomever we're starting these first 2 games, just stay in the game with them." Because if you can get those starting pitchers out, then you're going to win. If I were the batters, I would be forcing the Dodgers starting pitcher to throw 3 pitches to each batter, at least, and get it to the point where we got to take them out. We got to take them out. Because this is the easiest prediction I'm ever going to make in my life. The Dodgers bullpen will blow a big game. They came close to blowing a game. An extra hit here or there, they were on the verge of blowing a game. They were up 10-2 to a Reds team that isn't bad, but let's not get carried away. So listen to me, Phillies and whomever they may face. This defending World Series champion team is going to have to do something and do something fast. And I think it's putting Kershaw and Sasaki in there. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. How could it possibly be worse? There's nothing like catching a baseball game live, and I'm thinking about going to one of the playoff games in Los Angeles. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But you know what? Actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. You got the long lines, the login screens, the surprise fees. It takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use GameTime. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by the GameTime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets, and They're delivered on time and the right price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. And you cannot have a more simple app for buying your tickets. You can see the exact view from the seat before you buy, and you know the total up front. There's no surprise fees. And now for me, zone deals, that's the best. At Dodger Stadium, I like to sit in not the upper deck, not the lower deck, but the middle deck, a little bit up the first base line. That's the best view in the whole stadium. So I pick the zone. GameTime gets the best seat and the best deal, and you save big. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other ways you bought tickets. So guess what? Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go to GameTime today. Hey, have you ever felt like you weren't in control of your money? I feel that way all the time. Now, some people can't even name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, And when you don't have the full pictures, you could end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is so great. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch Money. It's built for people with busy lives. I have 3 jobs. And if you're putting off organizing your finances, you know what? Monarch's for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link your accounts in just minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you could identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought, Monarch helps you notice inefficient investment allocation. Say that 3 times fast and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. I brought up the Dodgers bullpen issues, and I'm starting to think that what Dave Roberts should do is take a good long look at the games between Detroit and Cleveland and Boston and New York this afternoon in California. By the way, that's why baseball playoffs are the best in California because, well, the games start at like 10 in the morning and the last game starts at 6. So, we can do this and you could have a tech problem in your podcast and still have enough time to re-record the show. The Tigers played Cleveland, and it was a very exciting game. And Tarik Skubal, as I mentioned before, pitched exactly like the ace you would want him to pitch like. He pitched into the 8th inning. He struck out 14 batters. He was absolutely dominant. And the one run the Cleveland was able to squeeze off of him was basically on an infield chopper. Now, Williams pitched really great for Cleveland, but Cleveland made a couple of key errors. Noel missed a catch. Rodriguez made a botched play in a single in the first that put 2 unearned runs on the board. Williams allowed 1 walk and 8 strikeouts, didn't allow an earned run over 6 innings. That's all you can ask for trying to match Skubal inning for inning. But you cannot make key errors, especially when they have a stud pitcher up there. But the thing you noticed is Skubal pitched into the 8th in a very tight game. He pitched into the 8th, and Vest came in and got 4 outs. Now, there was a lot of pressure on him because he had a runner on third with nobody out thanks to the Baez error. But he managed to work out of it. And Skubal pitched into the 8th inning. He pitched into the 8th. That's what an ace does. And he only threw 107 pitches, to be sure. But they weren't looking really at the pitch count. They were making sure the ace pitcher was doing their job. And by the way, if Detroit wins tomorrow, there were some people who asked me, was Detroit's collapse worse than the Mets collapse? A couple of people actually asked me that. The answer is absolutely not. Because if Detroit wins tomorrow, nobody is going to remember their collapse. Nobody will. Nobody remembered that the Texas Rangers flopped and floundered all around in, late August, early September in 2023 and barely hung on to make a playoff spot because they went on to win the pennant. No one remembers that Detroit absolutely caved at the end of the 2006 season and allowed the Twins to catch them on the last day of the season. Do you know why? Because the Tigers wound up winning the pennant. If the Tigers win one of the next two games, nobody is going to remember that they didn't win the division. Nobody. Because they'll have advanced and Cleveland will not. So they can wipe clean any memory. The Mets collapse will be remembered forever. The Tigers can be over in 24 hours. But the other game, but give Hinch credit. He used his ace, and he used his ace into the eighth inning, and it was clear he needed relief then. Which brings us to the other great pitching matchup that we had, which was in the Bronx. And you had Crochet against Fried. As I mentioned before, they were both phenomenal. Crochet struck out 11, and he wound up at one point, I think he retired, I think it was 16 or 17 straight batters. It was ridiculous. I don't remember. I know it was a lot. And he was in total control. But do you know what? Fried was as well. Now, of course, the way to beat the Yankees, and we all know this, is keep them from hitting home runs. And Volpe hit a home run in the second inning. Now, Crochet wiggled out of trouble in the first when he got Stanton to hit into a double play. And that got him out of that. But then the next inning, Volpe hit a home run. And then the two pitchers matched 0 for 0. Now, Crochet was more dominant than Fried, but Fried had the lead, was matching him 0 for 0 for 0. And they got to the seventh inning. Now, the Red Sox nearly scored a few runs. They rallied in the fifth. They rallied in the sixth, but they could not put a run across. Fried was working out of trouble. And then they get to the seventh inning. And yes, Fried at that point had pitched 102 pitches. And the fifth and sixth innings, he looked vulnerable. But he was also facing the bottom of the Red Sox lineup at this point. And at that point, Boone took him out and brought in Weaver. And I'm not going to throw any stats. I'm not going to throw any analysis here. I'm just going to say that I'm a native New Englander. And I grew up rooting for the Red Sox and hating the Yankees. So I cannot claim to have impartiality on this. I did pick the Yankees to win this series. I was walking my dog listening to this game. And the minute I heard Boone come out and take Fried out of the game and bring in Weaver, I looked at my dog and I said, yes, we're going to tie the game. We're going to tie the game. I just knew it. It was one out, nobody on. And I've seen enough games recently to know that Weaver is in a major slump. And next thing you know, the hit, you had the walk, then you had Sogard hustling a double out, and then Yoshida comes out and gets that key hit. They brought in Weaver to face the bottom of the order. There was no need to take Fried out. At that point, you should really be saying, you keep pitching till you let up a base runner. And if he got out Cedar Rafaela, if they got out Sogard, then he would pitch 7 innings. You relieve your pitcher in the playoffs, especially your ace, when they need relief. And Weaver coughed it up. And they left Crochet in until, and again, he started to look vulnerable in the 8th. So they took him out with 2 outs, even though he was throwing, 100 miles an hour still. It was clear they were starting to get to him a little bit. And so they brought in Chapman. Now, Chapman, of course, put him in a huge hole with, bases loaded and nobody out in the 9th inning. And he somehow wiggled his way out of that, somehow getting Stanton and Jazz Chisholm and Trent Grisham and got the victory. But they use their aces. Detroit and Boston used their aces until they needed relief. And it seems like a simple thing to say. But as Blake Snell will tell you, that's not the way everyone manages. This isn't the dumbest thing Boone's ever done, but it is something that when the opposition fan starts jumping up and down happy about the move you just made, then maybe it's a move you shouldn't make. Yeah, I know he wasn't as crisp as Crochet, but he was at the time beating him and facing the bottom of the order. And look what happened. This was a call I made then. And if I'm Dave Roberts, and I do want to end this rumor, I'm not. Take a good look at what the Tigers in Boston did. They let their aces pitch until they needed relief. If you have Yamamoto up there, if you have Snell pitching, let them go. Don't just say, well, you've done 7 innings. No, if they have anything left in the tank, keep them going. Because both Boston and Detroit are going into the game too with a pretty rested bullpen. Tigers use one reliever. The Red Sox use one reliever. Now, granted, they're probably not going to use Chapman again, but who knows? They might, because they would be able to know a victory tomorrow would close things up. When you have an ace and it's the postseason, use them till they're gassed. Use them until they need relief, because it's the postseason and you have to manage differently. You may have a shorter leash in some cases, but in some cases you need to have the longer one. I think the manager who pulled out their ace today too early is the one facing elimination tomorrow.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. It hits, you unlock 300 tomatoes in bonus bets across the app. You know, no matter how you do your betting, whether it's, your parlays you build up, your player props, you do the live lines during the game, FanDuel has you covered. It makes football even more exciting because it gives you a little something riding on each game. Now, whether you're a casual fan like I am, or you're just diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the football game day so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download the FanDuel app today and get started.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the Cubs and the Padres. It was an interesting game because for the first 4 innings, it really looked like that. It really looked like Pivetta and the Padres were in control, and then you just felt the mood of the game change when Suzuki hit that home run. Now, granted, it was back-to-back home runs, and the Cubs wound up holding on to the 3-1 victory. I'm really, we're going to see. I think that I picked the Padres to win that series, and I still think they've got a very good chance. But I give the Cubs a lot of credit that they went in, they won the game, and they didn't get the super strong start, and they used the bullpen very, very well. And so now the Padres, a superstar team filled with big star players, are on the verge of going home. And so are the Yankees. I got a couple of people in the live chat. I do want to bring up Luka Doncic's burner. By the way, that's a reference I don't understand, but I'm sure everyone knows it. The reason Kershaw was on the wild card roster is because he started on Sunday. I'm aware of that. I thought it was a mistake for him to start on Sunday. Or use him as an opener, have him pitch an inning, wave to the crowd, and go. Because I think he's more valuable to the team as a reliever. I think that decision to start, and I said this on the show, I thought the decision to start him and burn him so he wouldn't be on the playoff roster, I thought was banana boats. I thought it was truly crazy. And so I get what I understand that, but I just completely disagree with that decision to put him, to start him that way. Because you said in one of your comments, I'm putting all your comments up here, but you said one of your comments, a win is a win. And yes, a win is a win. It is binary in the postseason. But the fact that the Dodgers' weakest link, the weakest quality they have, is their bullpen, and it raised its ugly head today. Here's the deal. When you're going to play a team like Philadelphia or potentially Milwaukee, or potentially the Cubs or potentially the Padres, you can't rely on scoring 10 runs to give yourself that kind of a cushion. You can't. I do think they're going to beat Cincinnati in one of the next two games. I do. Maybe tomorrow. They may just make quick work of the whole thing. Or the Reds could get out, it could knock them out with their bullpen, and then you have a do or die game. And then everyone's knees will be knocking in Chavez Ravine. I don't think that's going to happen. I picked Los Angeles to beat Cincinnati. However, it is a scary thought for the defending champs. Now, of course, last year they had a scary thought too. They had to play bullpen games several times. And, Dave Roberts survived that. So we'll see what happens here. There was another piece of news that happened, which was Bob Melvin was fired, which makes it, I thought it was a little strange because they picked up his option during the regular season and then they fired him. So I don't know. I guess he's just going to get paid. The fact of the matter is, well, I'll do a whole thing on Melvin eventually. He has a strange managerial career because if he had a World Series title on his resume, people would be talking about him as a Hall of Fame manager. But he doesn't, and I think some people aren't sure what to make of him. He's taken the Diamondbacks to the League Championship Series despite having a negative run differential. He took the A's, several different A's teams whose budget was lower than that of the Locked On Podcast Network to the postseason several times. He took the San Diego Padres to the NLCS. So he's won the Manager of the Year several times. He just doesn't have a pennant or a World Series championship on his resume that I think would be the thing that would put him over the top, a la Dusty Baker when he finally won with the Houston Astros. I'm not going to talk about who I think the Giants should hire because I think that's more complicated. There's a lot of complicated things that could come about from that. However, I'm just going to say this right now. The Mets took the route of a young, hungry manager, and it exploded in their face this year. A manager who has had success almost everywhere he's gone and can sometimes be considered one of the best managers in the game is available for the Mets in Bob Melvin. However, he does drive fan bases bananas with how he manages. So did Dusty Baker, for that matter. So I can't determine whether or not Bob Melvin would be a good fit for the Mets. I think Joe Maddon would be. I don't know why he suddenly became a dummy because it didn't work out with the Angels, but I digress. The fact of the matter is, Melvin has done everything but win a World Series as a manager or get to the World Series and win it. He's taken teams that have no business being in the playoffs into the playoffs and has advanced with two of them, or with three of them. He advanced with the A's in the COVID year. He advanced with the Padres a couple of years ago, and he advanced the NLCS in 2007 with a mediocre Arizona Diamondbacks team that he managed to 90 wins. He has made teams that were underachievers overachievers. What would happen if you give him the car keys to a talented team that is underachieving? I don't know how he got along with Juan Soto when Soto was with San Diego. Neither do you, unless you are Juan Soto or Bob Melvin. But it's worth thinking about because the Mets have to make a change. And a couple of years ago, the idea of picking up Bob Melvin would have Mets fans' hair standing on end with excitement. But then again, the same thing could be said for Joe Maddon. And he's currently not managing anywhere. As for the Giants, we'll talk about that on another episode. And tomorrow, we got four more games. And looking into the abyss, the Yankees, the Cleveland Guardians, the San Diego Padres, and the Cincinnati Reds are all staring into the abyss. And we will see what happens. By the way, I want to just thank you all for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until a World Series champion is crowned. Watch it be the Reds. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night here on the Locked On MLB feed on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And let's do the trivia question, shall we? It's Yankee Red Sox related. Who is the, and listen carefully how this is phrased. Who is the only Yankee pitcher to throw a postseason clinching pitch against the Red Sox? Who is the only Yankee pitcher to clinch a postseason series for the Yankees against the Red Sox? Only one ever did it. And no, the Bucky Dent game was not a postseason. That was a tiebreaker game. So of all the times the Red Sox and Yankees have met in the postseason, only one Yankee pitcher ever threw the clinching pitch of a postseason series. Post your answers right down below. And there you go. Talking about all the postseason games that happened and having to do it again because of some tech problems. But you know what? In the end, I think it turned out all right. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.